So, Chapter 2 is looking at configuring the network operating system. So it gets you started in doing stuff onto the routers. I think we're doing with the router in this chapter, if I remember right. Either way, it doesn't make any difference whether it's router or switch, it works the same way. All of the stuff that's in this chapter. Now, so we've got plenty of time to cover this. So, and you've got 2 assignments to do. So let's first, probably most of for today's purpose, let's look at Packet Tracer and see where that is and what you do in it, because that's where you're going to do the work. I'm trying to remember, do I have the other program on here or not? I don't remember what I had them put on these machines. I had them installed, but it would be a little different. Oh no. Is Putty Tail on y'all's machine?
I tried it, didn't seem to work this far.
It's not on mine.
It's on your, I just launched.
Okay, you got Packet Tracer, but it's
It's under
Putty.
Cisco. Let me try his Putty. Maybe somewhere here this morning. Thin app has encountered an expected error. Click aboard to close the operation. Recharge the glove and continue to go. It's just dedicated. I don't know.
Okay. So I'm going to have to report it to them that it doesn't work. And they didn't put it on my machine, which they were supposed to put it on here too. I don't know why it's not up here. I got a request they put it on here too. Putty Tail will allow us to go into the actual routers and switches. Packet Tracer is going to be the simulation. Okay. Packet Tracer works real conveniently. It works just like when you go into Putty Tail. So I want Putty Tail working on there, so at least I can go into Putty Tail and show you that it is the same thing that you're seeing. As far as when you go into devices, that it's not any different to what you see when you go into the devices on there. I'm not for sure if I've even got the cables over here that I need to use. I think I do, so I need to remember to bring several of those, although I thought I had brought some over. But with Packet Tracer, it's a simulation environment that works almost exactly the same as if you're working on the actual Cisco switches and routers. Now for some of the other, it's a little bit different, but it's basically the same. How many of you have already installed Packet Tracer on your machines at home? How many of you have not? Okay. So let's first look at where it is so that you can get it. And if you go to your Netacad page, you go down to the bottom of the page, there in resources is Packet Tracer. And there's several versions of it available. There's a Windows version, there's a Linux version, and that there's 2 mobile versions so that you can get it to work on your iPhone or on your Android. Okay? Now, if you use the mobile versions, they look drastically different than the desktop versions. Okay? because they designed it for the mobile device, so that you're seeing only a small piece of it at any point to keep it down in size to working on your small screen of your phone or your tablet on it.
Is it something we should be comfortable working with or actually put on our phones to play around with?
If-
Something in the fields?
Because you don't need to, but if you want to, you can. They built it out there so that people could use it on their phone if they want. I really haven't looked at it on the phone since they came out with it, so I'm not sure. And I think that was version 1.0 that I saw, because that was 2 or 3 years ago when it first came out, so that should have been 1.0. So it's probably changed a little bit, but I haven't stuck it on my phone. But my phone is real limited on how much it'll let me put of apps and stuff on there. But it did, when they demonstrated it out there in San Jose to us, that it was going to make it completely workable on it. The other part is on your file and stuff on it, but that is there. I would encourage you to use one of the desktop versions, okay, and that's what I'm going to show you from. But there you're going to download it. There's 64-bit and the 32-bit versions, and so you can get whichever one you need on that. Now, they do support the iPhone, but they don't support the Mac, weirdly enough, okay? So I'm surprised they haven't put a version out there for it. But it is an extensive program they have developed. We are on version 7, and I'm not sure if that really, I don't remember if that really goes back to the starts of Packet Tracer, okay? It was originally called something else, and I don't remember if they started their numbering again when they changed it to the Packet Tracer name. But the original program of it was real limited on what it did. And it didn't do much stuff at all and didn't accomplish a whole lot, because I tried to use it. I won't say I used it. Tried to use it back when I was taking the Cisco classes in 2001. And it was so limited on what you did, and that its appearance and everything did not really resemble the real stuff. As far as doing some basic commands, it did that, but it didn't do much more. And that I went, just doesn't work. And I tried it a couple of times when I was taking my classes and went, this wasn't worth it. And I went to just studying and then doing the stuff when I was in the classroom. Then when I took CCNP, the first course, it was still that way that next fall, in fall of 2002. And they told us when we got to the college down in Jacksonville that they said to, that they had the computer lab open 24 hours a day for us, so we could go across town to the college and go in and work anytime we wanted. And 2, that they had it set up where we could dial into it at any time, and they had that set from the hotel for us. Now, a lot of places, actually a lot of schools have where the students can do it through something called Net Labs, and where they're using the real equipment, but doing it across the internet to it. We have not done that here because of the cost, although I've asked if they ever give me a bunch of money, because it cost about $20,000 for the system, not counting the routers and switches, which we already have, but just for the system. Because we could do a lot of other things on it too. Where I really want it's not so much for Cisco as for my Windows classes, because then the students could work off of real servers for the Windows class. And in that case would give me the ability to go in and look at what they're doing to figure out what they're doing wrong. With Packet Tracer a few years ago, probably for about 8 years now, that 8 years ago they came out with it where it was in really good shape and it's real viable for us, and that it works like the real stuff. They keep adding to it, like say 2 or 3, let's see, last summer, I guess 3 years ago, It's not last summer or the previous summer or the previous summer to that. I was in San Jose for their Cisco conference, and that they showed us the Android version at that point, and that was their big one. Now, if you take the Cisco sequence, all 4 courses, when you get to the 4th course, there's actually 1 or 2 things we teach there in that 4th course that you can't do on Packet Tracer. But beyond that, everything else works on there and works the same. So there's where you'd go to install it. Just know whether you need 64-bit or 32-bit, and that's just check your operating system, see which one you've got, and then download and install it. It's just an executable file you download. It's not a real large one. You can download and install on as many machines as you want. Okay? So if you've got a laptop and a PC, you can put them on both. If you work sometimes on the PC at your house and you go over to somebody else's house that you study at or something, some too, or whatever, you can install it on their machine too. Okay, so everybody follow on that? So you can install it as many places as you want to install it. So that's not any problem on that. The other part is when you save the file, as I'm going to show you in just a minute, if you save it on your thumb drive, on your flash drive, then you can walk it to whichever machine you want, open it up off there, and work with that file onto wherever you've got Packet Tracer installed. And that file is what you're going to submit to me. And guess what I do with that file when you submit it to me? When I go to grade it, I just open it up and we see what happened, what all's happening in it. So I see exactly what your results were. Likewise, if you have a problem with it, something doesn't work or whatever, send me questions. I may well ask you to turn around and send me the file also. Because if whatever you ask that I'm not real sure on what you're asking, or I give you an answer and you go, that didn't do it or whatever, I may well ask you for the file then, so then I can go in and look and see what it is you've done and figure out where the problem is. Because then I can play with it, and then I can write back and tell you, here's what you need to do to fix your problem, or where you're going wrong on it. So, let's go to, so everybody see where you're going to download from, okay? Because for some that sometimes confuses. So Packet Tracer, I've already started it. It's installed on the machines in this room for you. And that appeared to be working, right? Whereas PuttyTail's not working. When you start it up, that it will open up like that. If you can also start it from your file you're downloading. It will ask you when you go to open the file, so we'll do that in just a minute. But it's going to ask for a sign-on. This is the desktop, this whole white area. So anytime I tell you something, do something on the desktop, there's the desktop. One of the requirements you've got in here is you're to put your name somewhere on that desktop. That distinguishes for me that it's your work. If you don't do that, it will be a substantial penalty, like 30 points. So make sure you put your name on there. To do that, you will come over here, and where that little piece of paper is, right there, you will click it, and then come out here, and notice we've got an I-bar now. Click on it, and you get a blue box there, text box for you to type your name in. So I can sit there and type my name in. My name is now on that desktop. Does everybody follow on that? And then put it back normal control, just click that top box is what is normal. So now we're back to our normal regular control, not typing more notes on the desktop. So do make sure you put your name somewhere there on the desktop. Now, let's go back into the course, and because I'm still in there. So, we're not in the course, but we'll get in the course. Because I went to the student view, because it's different on how it views for me to download Packet Tracer than it does for y'all, so I wanted to get to the Learn one. So I'm going to go back to the course, and we'll launch the course. Click on there, I want to go to course index, I believe gives it to me. Yeah, course index gives it to me. I can go to the list of the packet tracers for all the chapters right there. And I'm just going to choose that one. So, but you can go through your curriculum and find it. You've been given the number for it. I don't remember if this one was 2.146 assigned to y'all or not. In any event, you'll get to here. It's the same looking screen, whichever packet tracer assignments you go to. There are two links right here. First one says it's some instructions for this packet tracer assignment. The second one says PKA, which is a packet tracer activity, and it's a .pka type file. The first one is actually included in the second one. So you don't need to do the first one unless you want to print out the set of directions. But it will give you the directions with it. So I'm going to go to the second one, click it, and since I'm in Chrome, I got to save it. Then I'll open it. And it opens Packet Tracer at this point for me. So our other copy of it is still sitting out here. So I'm going to close that blank one. And now you can see what we get when we opened. So we've got two actual windows that opened here. Very first thing it asks you is it gives you this user profile. You can just click cancel on this. You don't have to enter anything here. Does everybody follow on that? So you can cancel on that. If you want to enter stuff there, you can, but you can just cancel and it'll go on and go right on into it. Now I can open both. Both things are open, but I can display them both up here. So I've got a set of directions here and I can expand it as I need. And they give you detailed instructions on what to do on the assignment. So they tell you what you're going to do. And this one that they're just telling you about how to access various modes, which we'll look at in the chapter. But they tell you about step 1. They want you to connect PC 1 to S1. We look over here on the desktop. This thing included 2 items for us that already has built it. Okay? Now, you can build it yourself. Remember when you open Packet Tracer, this whole desktop is blank. You can build your own stuff out there. Okay? And you will build your own stuff later on. But to start with, they're going to give you. And some of them, they're going to already have stuff wired. On this one, they want you to wire it in. Okay? They also, on this exercise, I believe they limit us on what we can do in the equipment. They're going to lock some of the equipment on what we can do. Down here at the bottom is all the stuff that we can add up here at the top. And there's lots of things you can put in there. And as they come out with newer versions, it gets longer and longer. And this one's gotten a lot more stuff too. So that I'll give you another piece of information here. Right now that we have chosen that we're doing the actual network equipment and we've chosen routers. This is all the different models of routers that we can put in there. I believe that list keeps on going. Yep, nope, that's the whole list. Typically in here, the 1941 is the one you're going to use, but they've got all these other varieties of routers that Cisco makes also and has the differences on how they work. Does everybody follow on that? This one's the switches, and remember when I drew the items on the board, notice that these correspond to my little drawings I had up there, that it was the 4 arrows crossed over was the router I did. That's what they've got here in the circle. And then they got the switch with 2 lines on it. So the switches are next. And then we got a number of them. So we got switches available, and click to the switch. You got a few of them. The 2950 or 2960 is the one that they're going to quite often. 2950 or 60 is quite often what they'll have you using there. Next one is hubs, but you're not going to use hubs, but they got them in there. They're ancient equipment, and you don't want to use hubs. And we'll talk about hubs and switches later. The next one is wireless devices, that there are wireless devices you can choose to put up there. And so you can put in various things that are wireless devices, included. When I said we can build anything up here, you can put cell towers out there too, to where the signals are being relayed among. See how comprehensive it is. So you can get your cell towers in there. The next one is security things, which actually is a firewall of theirs that you can use. And the last one is the WAN emulation. What that is that's where you're connecting through the internet, and it's a cloud, and the internet is represented as a cloud quite often. Remember, if you store stuff out on the internet, it's stored on the cloud. Well, it's the same thing here. It's drawn like a cloud, and that's just saying we're going through our ISP to connect out to where we're connecting to the other end. So that's there. The second one here is the end devices, which we talked about the other day. You've got several of those here. You've got PCs and servers, and a number of others, and I can't remember what all of these things are. Oh, we got a home that you could have there, because you can make a smart home on this thing, and that you can actually do various things within it that we'll see. So if we stuck, I don't know if it'll let us do this one or not. So on the smart home, things within the home that we could have. Why is it not giving me a pop-up right here? Oh, okay. It is. We can have a smart air conditioner in that home. We can have a smart appliances. We can have a battery in the home. We can have CO2 detectors, CO detectors. We can have a ceiling fan, because you can get those that are internet controlled, and here you can build it into, out here in Packet Tracer, build a home to where it, and you can actually, if you put that fan there, you can have it where, set it so that the fan comes on in there when the room reaches a certain temperature. Y'all follow on that? So it's completely realistic on that. A door that you can lock and unlock on it. A fire sprinkler. A furnace, garage door, home speaker, humidifier. So lots of IoT things, Internet of Things, or Internet of Everything, depending on who you're seeing the definition from. So lots of different things out here. A motion detector, a siren. The siren does make noise that when it goes off, you'll have signal your speaker or a screech at you. Smoke detector, a solar panel. Most of this home stuff was added in version 7, so that's all new things. I think we got a sprinkler out there too somewhere, where you can water the grass as you want. There's a water drain, a wind detector, a window, because you can tell it to open and close the window, because you can actually do that in real world too. You can get internet controlled windows that open and close, where you can open and close them from wherever via the internet. So you got a lot of neat things there. The next one is components that are available out there, and that's just some specialized boards and things. You know, when things that you can put out there, actuators. And these are things to cause those others to affect. So you can cause it to snow, you can have a heat coming at it, etc. So you can make it, test it to see, all right, if we have a snowstorm now, does my things come on and off like they're supposed to? Or if it gets really, really hot in there, does the fire detector go off and catch the temperature when it should? Does everybody follow on that? So you can do all kinds of interesting things in here. This next one, the lightning bolt there, is really not a lightning bolt, that's your cabling. That has all the different types of cables that you can connect devices together with. For your purposes in here, the first three, well, I guess really the first four, are the ones you're going to use. If you're connecting to the cloud, where you're making connection from your modem out to your ISP, effectively is what you're doing, you use this one, which is going to give us a serial connection. The second one is a rollover cable, and you're actually going to use that in the first assignment, if I remember right. It's a special cable to connect into the console port on the switch or the router, and allows you to then program the router or the switch, but you have to be physically present to do it that way, and that's a security feature on router and switch. Now you can set the router and switch also where it can be programmed across the network. And you're going to learn about that cable when you go to make cables. You're going to make one of those. The next one is just a straight through cable, which is your normal patch cables that y'all use for plugging devices together. Both ends are the same. It's just a straight through cable. That's that cable with the solid bond. And that's what you normally, that's when you go and buy some device that has a cable in it, that's the cable that comes with it. Okay? Following one is a crossover cable. It's for connecting two of the same type devices together. So if you want to connect a PC to a PC for them to talk back and forth to each other, you got to use a crossover cable on that. Okay? If you're and when we get to a model, to the OSI model later, we're going to see if you connect between odd layers, devices that are on odd numbered layers, you have to use a crossover cable between them. If you're connecting between even ones, you got to use a crossover, but if you're connecting from an odd to an even, then you just use a straight through, which is the case of when you connect your PC to the switch, they're on two different layers. Okay? So those are the cables you're going to use. They've got a whole bunch of other specialized ones on a cross tier that you can use also, and I'm not sure which ones they are because I haven't used them other than they're getting some other specialized serial ones. No, that first one I was wrong. The first one is not a serial one, but it's an automatic, so it takes care of actually these two, that if you connect stuff together with it, it chooses which type cable it should be. Now, y'all need to choose the correct cable, so don't be using the automatic one. If you do, I'm going to give it back to you and tell you got to fix it. All right, now, let me see if this thing, I don't think this is, okay. That's interesting.
They want you to console in, I think.
Yeah. But what's interesting is it actually lets us, it won't let us do anything in there. It didn't used to even show it to us. And what I'm wanting to do is just show y'all right now. So, if we double click on devices, it will take you into the device and let you do things on it. The PC, that's the one that's not quite as realistic as how your PC really works, but it gives you the abilities of everything a PC does. So if I double click on it, I get this illustration, picture of the PC, and any of you that use test out in 1135 or 1122, this is familiar looking because you've seen similar. We've got lots of modules we can plug into the device here. And we've got the actual device, we've got a power switch on it that really works. Still got a floppy drive in it, so they're using an older machine. And that we can actually sit here and look at it in several different ways. On the PC, the one you're going to be normally worried about is going to the desktop tab. Although there can be later that you'll have to add a module to it. And that we can actually change that one to get in the view that we want it. So if I go to desktop, there's where it's sort of like what on your PC, but not really. Okay? To configure for your IP configuration, when you put in the IP address and all of that stuff on your PC, you need to go to command prompt and then type, actually not to command prompt, but you need to go to network settings and then choose which connection you're on, and then it'll pop up for you where you can put in your actual numbers. Here, we can just click on IP configuration and it gets us to the same type screen. And there you can put in what your IP address is, subnet mask, and all of that you're going to learn about specifically later on. Both for IP version 4, it says IP, and that's normal out there in the world. If they just say IP, you're normally talking about version 4 of IP. And then they've got IP version 6, which your machines have got also. And that you can set on that, and we'll see the differences between the moving to here, but we're still extensively here, but there's a lot of stuff here. So you'll be able to set that one. So then I can close it. With the X here. Terminal will allow you, is doing what PuttyTail does for us, and that will allow you to go into the router or the switch from the PC. Okay, so that's using that console cable between them. Now, what you're going to find as you get further along after the first exercise or two, they're going to allow you to go straight into the router or the switch. You really can't do that on the real equipment. Okay, which this has one nice little part on. On the real equipment, you really got to go through from here, but if we did from here, they ask for this, but you don't have to really worry about that data right there. You just click OK on that always, even in PuttyTail. That you don't have to put the numbers in normally, but it just does it. You're telling it what speed of connection you've got between your PC and that router or switch. Since I haven't put the console cable in there, it won't do any good to do anything right there yet. Command prompt does exactly the same thing as if you went to command prompt in Windows. It just goes back to the DOS prompt. So it's just a simple way to get there for it. And I don't remember if y'all do in this course or not, but I think you do actually use their web browser later on, or definitely in later courses. You can set up an HTML server in here, and then you can use your PC to connect to it and pull up the web page from that server, HTML server, that web server that you have set up, and see the connection on it and see a web page display here. You're not going out on the real internet, you're purely within the packet tracer environment. So everybody follow on that? That you can simulate that too, to see if you've set your settings correctly for your web server, and do it through a wired or a wireless connection in packet tracer. And that one works real nicely on that. There's a very basic page on it, but you can set up a page there. You can set up your wireless, and you can do an email server on one of the servers, and then you can do email within packet tracer but not to the outside world. Again, the nice part of simulating, but you're not really doing the real thing. And we do that at some point later on. You can set up a firewall in there, and then you can do a number of other things that we're not going to do in here. All right, questions on that, on the view of it? All right, now let's see how we cable these together. You would normally, we want this PC to talk to this server, okay? To do that, you're going to use a crossover cable because PC, no, to the switch. You're going to use a straight through cable because PCs and switches are on different layers. And so we're going to connect the PC to the switch with our regular cable. So we'll click on the cable, which is the black line down here. Then we'll come up here and then we'll click on the PC. It tells us all of the plugs that exist on that PC. Now, they're not going to all work for you on this one, because guess what? This is a network cable with an RJ45, looks like a telephone plug, that will plug into here. They've told us there's an RS-232, which is your serial port. That's that little bit larger one on there. It's sort of like your monitor plug-in, your SVGA one. There's 2 USB ports on this PC, and there's a fast Ethernet one. You can choose whichever one you want to plug it into. It's not going to let you plug it into something that won't work. You see what happened when I tried to plug that twisted pair cable into the USB? It says I can't connect it there. So I click on it again. I want it to go into fast Ethernet, and it's connected. Notice I've got a wire right here now that's plugged into the PC. So now I'll go to where I want to plug it into, and it gives me all of the ports on that switch. And remember from last week when I showed you the switch back there that it had a bunch of ports on it. This one happens to have 24 fast Ethernet, which is the 100 megabit per second connection. And it's got 2 gigabit ones, which is the 1,000 or 1 gig connections. And it's got a console port. They all have the same plug on it, so you can actually plug into any one of these, and it's going to let you do it, but it's not going to work this cable if you plug it into the console. Your directions quite often over here will tell you exactly what to plug it into. In this case, it was to go to the console port, but if it was to go to one of the fast Ethernets, it may well tell you in the directions to plug it into fast Ethernet 4 or 2 or whatever. Make sure you plug it into the correct one. Because the other part I didn't mention earlier, I forgot to mention, is it tells us here what our grade is. Okay? So it says completion 0 out of 20. Most of your labs will have that. Sometimes they'll be like this grading where it's 20 points of stuff. Sometimes they'll be based on 100. So what it varies, but you want to get it to where it's to 100%. Okay, and like I say, some of them will say 100% or 80%. This one says something out of 20. So your object is to get 20 out of 20. So they actually are telling us to, or having us to use the console one, but I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. They haven't told us anywhere specifically to plug this because they're not using it, so I'm just going to plug it in port 1. Notice the colors on this. It says it's plugged in here and we're confined here. It's orange here. It's not got the right addressing on both ends, so it can't talk back and forth. So it's successfully plugged in, but it's not. When it's actually able to talk back and forth and done completely correct, it'll be green on both ends. So let's do a console cable since that's what they told us to do. So that's the blue one here. And so I'll pick on here. It actually plugs into the RS-232. And notice also in the meantime that the 2 devices did get to talking. So on the other cable. So now I'll take this. It's again a wire. Nice one on here is it's a variable length wire that it just keeps pulling out how much ever you need to pull out on it. And we'll go to the switch again. This time we're plugging into the console. So I'll plug it in. And technically, according to them, we're done. We've done everything that it's going to have us physically do that it's measuring. But they want you to go through and play with stuff in this layout. Does everybody follow on that? But it's not any settings you're going to change or anything else. You're just looking at stuff, so there's nothing they measure you on. On your labs, they're measuring on things that you got to change and set settings on. If it's just look at something, it doesn't count in the numbers. Does that? Everybody follow on that? So if I turn this one in at this point to me, I would give myself 100 on it. Okay? So now that I've got that in there, let's go back to the PC. And let's go to terminal. And there's our list of the settings that had automatic for us. We click OK. And it pops up on this. And once we got through that sign-on one, we can actually enlarge stuff. So if you want it to enlarge it, but I usually don't enlarge to full screen because I want to be able to look at the directions also. But if you want to make it full screen and then flip back and forth from the bottom to the other, you can. Or you can open them up however you want to be able to see on them. If we went into the switch back there at the back, using putty tail from your PC and had the little blue cable I've got sitting back there plugged in from your PC to the switch, and it actually is a light blue cable also. So it matches to what their coloring is on here. When we start at putty tail, the first thing it's going to ask you is those settings in terms of the connection speed, just like we just saw. And then you're going to get exactly the same screen. You're in, at this point, we're not talking on that PC anymore. This is talking on the switch. But we're going through the PC to the switch. Everybody follow on that? If I hit enter here, it's going to get me to a prompt. And I'm ready to start typing in stuff right here. And to start entering my commands. And so now I can enter any of the commands I want to enter. So over here that they tell us, go and look at health out here, question mark in Cisco iOS, which is their operating system. The I is for Internetwork, so it's the Internetwork operating system. It's a variety of Unix, okay? So it's been built off of Unix. So if you know Unix, Linux already, some stuff is going to be somewhat familiar to you, okay? But most of it's totally different because it's designed just for these machines, but they actually have, it's an actual variation off of Unix. So if we want it to do help, we can do a question mark. And if I do a question mark there, I don't even have to enter. All I did was type a question mark, and it responded back. And it tells me what the commands are available to me from this prompt. Okay? And so it tells me that these are my executive commands. I can open a terminal connection. I can actually connect to another device. With the connect disable, we can turn off privileged commands. And we'll talk about that later on, but there's two modes you'll be in, exec mode or privileged mode. We're in exec mode right now. If you wanted to get rid of, close out exec mode, you'd use disable. To get into exec mode, guess what you use, what command? If disable takes you out of exec, what puts you into exec? Enable. And there's enable for you. Exit to exit out of here. Log out to exit out, so you can either use exit or log out. Ping, if we want to send a message to another machine to see if that machine's there, which you can do on Windows also. Ping will work the same. Actually, it works a little different. You've got more power of ping in here than you do from Windows. Windows, it sends out 5 pings and tells you if it got a response back on 5 tries on it. In here, you can tell it to ping as many times as you want. Tell it to send pings at a time. You can send 1,000 of them. Whereas in Windows, it's stuck to the 5 on it. You don't have a choice on it. You can also do pings in here that you can tell it to ping from another device to another device instead of from the device you're on. In Windows, you can only ping to someplace else from where you're at. So you can act like you're sitting on another machine and have it do it from that other machine. I've never used resume. Show, you're going to use show a ton in this class on your devices. Every time you want to see different things about what's out there on it, the show command will do it. So you're going to learn all kinds of show commands. Telnet, actually is letting us go into another device, just like we've just come into this. We've actually telnetted into this one the way we came in. Okay? And terminal is just where we can set our parameters about how this is set up. Trace route is like ping. It's also available on your PC. And that lets us pick an address. We could do traceroute cnn.com. On here, you're going to do it just to addresses, not to domain names. But you could do traceroute cnn.com, and it will tell you every router it goes through getting to CNN, or if it can't contact CNN, you'll know what routers it went through and where it died at. It is a real good diagnostic piece of equipment, piece of software to when the network's acting up, to figure out where the problem is. Because when I used to run the network for Swainsboro Tech, I used traceroute all the time when people would have problems on their machine of getting to things. Ran traceroute, and I could figure out, was it my problem or was it somebody else's problem? Because if it was beyond the school building, when it connected out to our to our network service provider, if it was out there, somewhere out on there, I didn't have any control about that, and the only thing I could do was call them and tell them there was a problem. And it might be even beyond them on another one, as it travels through the whole internet. Back to what I was saying, that this is using Unix. It's trace route here spelled out. If you do it on the PC in Windows, it is trace RT. Why would it be trace RT in the Windows DOS environment versus trace ROUTE in the Unix environment?
8 letters.
8 letters. Because that's a command from back to when we first did internet from '69. So Unix was what they were using, so they came up with trace route, because you can have command names in Unix that are 256 characters long. Okay, your program names can be that. DOS went limited to 8 characters, so when Microsoft did DOS, actually Seattle Computer Works did DOS, and Microsoft bought it and expanded on it, they had an 8-character limitation. Trace ROUTE is more than 8 letters, so they abbreviated it as trace RT. One of the things that makes DOS Windows different than Unix. But DOS was actually based off of Unix also, but different, and so it's got some things different on it. The limitation on the number of characters for names was one of them. Now you don't have that limitation, and since you've gone to Windows 9X forward, that you've got 254 character limitation again on it. But you still got the slashes and backslashes, the opposite between the two operating systems. If you're in Unix, it's a slash that you use to separate folder names or directory names. If you're in Windows, it's a backslash in the Windows DOS world. Okay? Because the internet was built off of Unix, when you're on there, notice it's always forward slashes, because you're working off of Unix on that part. All right, does everybody follow on that? If you know how the command starts, you can actually do that also. So I remember the command starts with an E, but I can't remember the rest of it. I can do E question mark, and it tells me it's an ambiguous command because it doesn't know. It will actually tell us what all is involved in it. So I can do ENA.
You got a space in there.
And then through a space. Oh, what? Oh, because it's looking for me to throw my choices. So I can do ENA. I'm not sure if there's something else I got to type in with enable. Usually you can do them as 3-letter abbreviations. All you have to do is put in enough letters that makes it unique. Does everybody follow on that? And it's normally 3 letters will give you a unique command. So you'll see us shorten a lot of things down to 3 letters or less. Enable question mark, which actually has no other choices. So it comes back and it tells me that actually I can choose what level of enable, because there are, I forgot on that one for a moment there, and I should have remembered. And from CCNA security course I took a year ago, you've got multiple levels of enable you can use also. So we could tell it what level of enable we want to use, because we can give, enable gives you administrative rights. Okay?
But you can just type just enable, right? I mean,
You can type just enable, and if you do, it takes you to, if you haven't set up, in y'all's cases, it takes you to full enable rights, okay?
So that 016 is something that you would set up in the
So,
switch, like if you wanted.
You would set up in the configuration saying certain users can only use a certain level of enable. 15 is the highest level, okay? That's what y'all are going to get anyway, okay? But out there in the real world, that you may well be told you've got enable rights on a machine, but they only give you some of the enable rights by assigning you a lower number and said what commands you're allowed to use. Where the administrator of the system would have full rights with the 15, and that they gave that to them. Does everybody follow on that? So you can actually restrict it. So I've given you way beyond the course here that I just gave you information that's not even in the 4 courses. That gets into the 5th course, which we don't teach. But the nice part is, with their help, it will come back and tell you different things. At this level, there's not a lot we can do, so I'm going to do the enable. Now, notice when we did enable, something changed. Our prompt character changed from a greater than sign to a number sign. So you can look at the prompt character and tell which level you're on, okay? Before it, here in iOS, it tells you the device you're on. Does everybody follow on that? So we're on switch 1, which right now is named S1. We can change the name of that, okay? And you will change the name of that in y'all's first assignment or so, okay? Now, so then you've got the full power to, when you're enabled in the executive privileged mode, you get to program the device, which is what y'all are going to be learning some of in here, but not much. Up till a year ago, people that took this class never touched the routers and switches, except for in the last chapter, they were just shown how to look at it. Y'all are actually going to learn how to program them along the way. So if you talk to people that took the course a couple of years ago, you're getting stuff they didn't get, okay? They had to wait till the 2nd course to do it. All right, questions on how this is all working right there? Now, when you get through, so now I'm sitting here. Once you get through with that, you can exit, and it'll close. It logs you off as what exit or log out does for you, if you remember from up above. Or Control Z does the same thing, and we'll learn a few of those along the way. Most of the control characters, I don't know what they are, but the Control Z one, I have learned that one because I use it a fair amount. So I can close that. I'm going to close the PC. And if we had this all working, and you can actually sit there, if you don't like these lines touching each other, you can actually drag them apart some, or should be able to. Well, when you drag it on out, it does it on it. I say make sure you do put your name on it with using that piece of paper there where it says place a note, that you can put notes out on here. Make sure you do that before you finish it up. To save the file, it's normal for you, just like you're used to doing on stuff, that you can go to File, Save, or Control S will get you there. That's packet tracer not within the machine. There's different control things on those. And that's standard for you back there too. So we can do save or save as. Don't do the save as PKZ. That zips the file and makes it more difficult for me to work with. Okay, just save it as a PKA, or when they have you create some stuff out there, it'll save as a PKT. PKA for an activity, PKT for just a packet tracer file. The PKA actually includes instructions with it. Does everybody follow? That's the only difference between a PKT and a PKA. PKT just has what's over here. PKA has both things. You're going to do a save. Save or save as. Remember, this first time does a save as anyway, since it's not ever been saved. But I'll choose save as. And I'd obviously, back on January the 5th, downloaded a file on here too. I guess I did the first day in class for y'all. Did I? So that's the date on that. And then you'll name it down here. You can stay with the name that it downloaded as to save on your machine. You can choose wherever you want to save it to on your machine, whatever folder you want to save it in. Just remember where you saved it to. So if you want to save it to your thumb drive, you can save it to the thumb drive. That's just a normal save as box. And it's going to save it as a PKA file. This machine's not got settings like I would like settings on it. I want to show extensions all the time. I don't like the bit of where Microsoft by default hides extensions because they think it looks friendlier, not including the extensions, but then that confuses people when they've got two files out there with the same name. One of them's a Word document file and one of them's a Word Excel file, but they both have the same name. Now they got a different icon with them, agreed, but how many of us can remember those icons? And people will go, but I've saved with using the same name for two different things. No, they really didn't. Had the same first name, but had a different last name. And that confuses people about when you tell them that you can't use the same name twice. Yeah, you can for the first name, but it's got to have a different last name if that's the case. Any of you that don't know how to turn that on, is if we go to organize, it should be properties. It's not properties.
You're in the middle of a download, so.
Yeah. Well, it should do it in here. I guess it's way out. Nope. Oh, it doesn't give me a choice right there. In any event, save it. So I've saved it. It tells me that I'm going to overwrite the other one. Yes, I do. Because I could have just done save since I was saving in the same name and not even had all of this. So it's just a normal save as situation. Just don't, as I said, don't save it as PKZ. Just do the save or save as standard. Okay? Questions on how that works and what packet tracer looks like? So you can set up all kinds of things here in packet tracer. If we wanted to add a piece of equipment up there, that we can just click on whatever. If we want to throw another router up here, a 1941, all I do is click on the one I want to do, drag it up there, and drop it up there. If we want it to go to the home stuff on here, if we want, let's see which one was the home. Oh, there it is. If we want it to use any of those, we want to put a wind detector up here, and there it is. Notice it is an Internet of Everything device. Okay? Internet of Everything is Cisco's term. Internet of Things is what most other organizations uses the term out there. That's where you've got everything under the sun connected together via the Internet. That's also what caused the DNS attack that we had back in October, was people took advantage and used as their bots to attack certain DNS servers in a couple of places in the country. that they used all of these Internet of Everything devices that have no security on them, that now they're trying to figure out how to get security on them and also to get people to update them. That's going to be the big key to the whole thing. Because everything under the sun out there is on it. Guess what? That thermostat on the wall over there is an Internet of Thing device. We don't have control on it actually here at the school. I think it's controlled in Ohio. Okay. Apparently we do now have ability to press the off button on there and turn it off. But as far as the temperature set on it, people in Ohio got the control on that, not us here. Done through the internet. Water sprinklers out there, especially irrigation sprinklers for a lot of these fields and stuff, are starting to put devices on them to detect rain, etc., so that they only come on and water the field if it hasn't rained in X number of days or whatever, or to tell it if it has rained, don't come on, so that they don't overwater and waste water on it. All kinds of stuff out there that have got on it. Only thing is, and then obviously your phone is an Internet of Thing or Everything device also, because you're connected through there. A number of you have already seen where cameras and locations are controlled across the internet and can be viewed. Because I remember back in the early 2000s setting up one, or an early one of it, where the people could sit there and view the cameras in their plant from at home and connecting it to the internet. And then if the alarm went off at the place and they lived 30 miles away, they could go onto the computer, look at the cameras and see if something was happening in there, to then alert the police or fire department about on it without having to get there. And guess what? When they live 30 miles away, that really came inconvenient for them. So there's a ton of things that fit into that Internet of Things out there. Okay? The only problem is there's been no security put on those things out there, and that they're actual internet in devices. And that meant that then somebody could program into them, and which is what they did, and told them to start sending pings at certain DNS servers on a certain date using a botnet. That's one of the things that's been mentioned about where that Trump's appointing Giuliani to try and figure out how to make the stuff secure and make our whole system secure, is what to do on that and such. Security wasn't built into it. And then finally people are waking up now that something has happened, of something could major happen. But you will see it as Internet of Everything or Internet of Things. Usually you'll see it as Internet of Things, but in your Cisco book, Cisco came up with the term of Internet of Everything. You'll also see it abbreviated as IoT or IOE, which just like right there you see it's IOE. And then the number after it just assigns every device we put out there with a number to start with. Maybe it's router 0. The other ones start from 1. Some things start from 0. Some things start from 1. And those two we added started from 0. But things they tend to put out there, I think they choose to start them from 1. Okay, questions on Packet Tracer? So that should give you a good overview of it. And that's used up basically our time for today. Then Thursday, what we'll do is we'll start into the commands in there about how to actually do stuff in there and what commands are you can use. Because we've got 2 weeks to work on this, so we've got 3 more days for this. But the big part is, first off, is you're going to do it in Packet Tracer, so do from there. Probably wait till Thursday next week, do Tuesday, this Thursday and Tuesday, working on commands and stuff. And assuming we get through that, like I'm thinking, and we'll probably we'll have time left, then I'll hook up a switch, the real switch for you on one of these machines. Hopefully by then they got putty tail working for us, and that we can then hook up one and you can see using the real switch that it looks exactly the same as what you're doing on here, and that it's not some imaginary simulation that's not real world based, that it is the same thing. And so that what you learn on here works exactly onto the real equipment. Because actually you can sit here, configure this switch here, we can save that configuration as a text file, go and upload it onto that switch and have that switch back there working just like that switch there, and have tested it out in here without being in a real environment and affected anything. Prior to this packet tracer, you had to have another set of equipment sitting around, or else risk knocking your whole network down when you went to make changes. And so that was a huge expense either way. And so this makes it a whole lot easier on it. And so you can set up all of your stuff on here, know exactly how it works, pull the configurations you already did off there and load them onto the routers and switches straight off and be set to go. So if you needed to redo your whole network, do it all on here, get it all tested out on here, copy it all down, and then one night during the middle of the night, take your network down, upload it to everything, turn it all back on, and it should all work. Already having been tested, and when people start coming in at 7 o'clock in the morning, no hiccups or anything, everything's working. And none of them, unless you had a midnight shift there, nobody got affected. And that's usually a minimal amount of people, so you planned it around that. Any other questions?
Like when we do these activities, we don't ever, if we ever need to like save it and send you a copy or something, Ben will specifically say that, right? I mean, we don't need to like save this.
No, you do. You got to save it, and then you've got to submit that file to me in the Dropbox in Blackboard. I will not see it till you send it to me.
Is there anything we need to send you so far?
No.
So each lab we have to save and send to you, put in the Dropbox. Okay. What about the tests and other small
Test, that automatically comes, it gets posted out there, and then I'll see that out there in the grade book.
Okay.
Okay?
What about the packet tracer tutorial?
The packet tracer course there, that you don't have anything to send to me either, because actually you go through the lesson, what was it, 2 lessons or?
There's like a quiz
And so there's a final in it. I think there was a quiz or something you could take, but that doesn't make any difference to you. Quizzes don't count, but you got to do the final, which wasn't very long or anything.
There's like a thing you got to do at the end. It's an assessment or something where you got to rate the course or something.
And then, so you got 2 things to do in there. You got to do the test, and y'all are going to have questions on tests sometimes that actually it brings up packet tracer and GUIing the test. So you do have to have packet tracer installed on the machine you're taking your test on, because it could have questions that use packet tracer as part of the question. Not very often, but it could, okay? But on that, for the packet tracer course, you got to do that final in it, and you got to do the course feedback. Every Cisco class you do, you have to do the course feedback to be able to pass the class. Likewise, for the whole class that we're doing this semester, when we get to the end of it, you've got to do the same course feedback for this class, along with do the final exam in here and do the lab final, which is going to be doing those cables. If those 3 items are not checked off out there at Cisco, it will not let me check the block that says you passed the course. You can't pass without having done all 3 things. Does everybody follow on that? So on the packet tracer one, do the 2 items. You got to do a test and you got to do the course feedback. And then sometime next week probably, because I think I set next week as the due date on that, but
Yeah,
if you
we'll do
don't
the
get it,
23rd for packet
the
tracer.
23rd is what I think I set on. If you don't get it done by the 23rd, that's not a hang up on that one, but you need to get it on done, because It's taking you through and showing you what I just showed you, but more extensively, and showing you a lot of things. Oh, well, I'm thinking of, let me point out another one for you. Couple of buttons down here. One of them is extremely important to you. Power cycle devices, that one's not important to you. What that does is turns the devices all off and on. So it just turns them off and on. Because if any of you have ever helped somebody with a computer problem, what's the best thing usually to have them do first? Turn it off and turn it on, and a lot of times that will solve their problem, okay? That's what that does. It turns everything off and on for you. Instead of having to go to each one, turn it off and on, because you may have a whole bunch of them out here. You can click that button, it turns everything off and back on, okay? I don't think I've really ever used that button. Second button I use a lot, and I will use it grading y'all's assignments too. That is fast forward time. Every time you click that button, 30 seconds goes by on the click. There are some things in networking that take a minute, minute and a half, or even up to 3 minutes to occur on the network. Remember where we talked about convergence the other day? It will take up to 3 minutes to get a network into convergence, as waiting on, because they only send messages every so many seconds out. Hitting that fast forward time, you can cut that 3 minutes down to just 3 clicks or something, maybe 6 clicks. I guess 6 clicks, okay? Instead of having to sit there and wait for it to come up to do the stuff, you can tell it jump in time. It does everything it should have done during that time, so it knocks out that problem. So that fast forward button can be real handy at times. When you're sitting there, if you hit something that it's going to take time for it to do it, you can tell it to jump time. Real equipment does not have a fast forward button. And I've had students tell me several times about how they hate working on the real equipment because they can't fast forward time. That they have to sit there and wait for it to do whatever it is. But that is a real handy little button there for you. If you ever want to delete anything, the X will do that for you. Click the X and then go over to whatever it is you want to delete. We plug the wrong wire in between these, click the X, come over, click onto the wire, and it will delete that wire. Just then go back and click that top box where it's back to the pointer thing so that you don't accidentally delete something else. Questions? Then I will let y'all go. I will see you on Thursday. Any of you that have got me tomorrow, you don't have me tomorrow. Because my appointment time they gave me was 10:45, which wiped out the 9 o'clock class, the 11 o'clock class, and it's 15 minutes, which means it'd be 11 when I'm supposed to finish. Assuming that they are on time, I'm the first one, so they probably are, but then they got to take my picture, and somebody may want to talk to me down there in Rome or whatever at that point. So getting back here by 1 o'clock class, I just called the 1 o'clock class off because I got to get lunch too after having sat through that. So, but I will be on the Walker campus tomorrow afternoon, so I'll answer email in the afternoon and stuff, and actually probably look in the morning before I head to Rome. So I will be answering stuff if you have any problems. But just remember, you do have to submit the packet tracer assignments. That file. Also, if you have a question for me and you hit a problem, you may want to just go ahead and attach the file in the first place. If I don't need to look at it, I'll look at it, but if I do, I will. But if I do need it on your question and you didn't attach it, I'll just write back and tell you attach it, because it's a small file, so you can easily attach it on an email message and it flies right on through. Packet tracer is small and efficient. So it's not any big file that's going to bog stuff down right there. Or your email or my email will get upset because it's too big. It's small. Okay? They've done a good job of writing it. Once they figured out what they were doing, they took off and did a real good job with it. When they first started with it, it wasn't the best thing. But now, you can see how extensive it has gotten now by what I showed you today. That we can set up a world environment out there. You can actually do cities within it, of multiple homes, and so then you can have where you're controlling from one place to another. So you can do all kinds of neat things with it. Then I will see you Thursday.